Hey everyone, welcome to Pit Stop 12. Today, Nuke and I are going to be talking about goals, something that I know he is really into and has a good relationship with, and someone that I look to when I have questions about them because I personally am not a huge fan and am just starting my relationship with them. So, Nuke, how you doing today?
I'm great, sir. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Awesome.
And this is coming up a little bit because so in our men's group, we actually did our quarter three goals last night
Yep.
and kind of challenged the men on them. And we're figuring them out and setting some good intentions behind them. And, it's a topic that I've thought about a little bit in the past. And mainly because I've always struggled with goal setting, telling myself I'm just not a goal oriented person, but
Hmm.
always feeling like there's so many people that I look up to and that are successful that all they talk about is goal setting and how it's helped them. And so digging a little bit more into it, and a few weeks ago actually I ended up writing an article about it and digging into it deeper and figuring out some of the major issues that I've seen in the past that have kind of held me back in goal setting. So just wanted to talk to you about those.
Hey, man, here we go. I'm ready.
So I guess the first one is just kind of prefacing of what's your relationship with goals right now? Like when did you really start getting into them? Is there a specific methodology that you use with them? If it's SMART goals or whatever it might be. Just talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So I have been a fan of goals since I can remember. I think mom and dad were really good at getting us to be working towards something, whatever it was, whether it's school or sports. I did a lot of drama, so there was drama as well. And so for me, I've always enjoyed having something to strive and work towards. It wasn't until I went and did kines at Mount Royal and then at U of L that I actually started like really diving into sports psychology, and that whole mentality around goal setting is so important. And
Sorry
for
to
me,
interrupt really quick,
yeah,
Nuke. Just thinking back to when you were a child, do you
yeah.
know if it was more you naturally liked to work towards something and your parents encouraged that, or you think it was your parents encouraged working towards something and so you started, doing it that way?
I think it was a little bit of both,
Okay.
because what comes to mind, for example, is like I don't know if you know this, but I did figure skating when I was younger,
Yes.
and that was something that mom and dad put us in to learn how to skate. Right. Once I was in it, then it was like, okay, like let's have systems and routines, you know what I mean, and goals so that I can not skate with the helmet and take my elbow pads and knee pads off, and learn my inside outside turns, and so there's stuff like that. So it was definitely, I would say, mom and dad kind of gave me the structure and the direction, and I was like, okay, now that I'm doing it, this is what it looks like. you know Same thing with like playing soccer or playing basketball when I was younger, all these activities. Yes, it was mom and dad giving me the time, the space, and then from there I, I think I can say it was never me being like, I want to do this, and then coming out of that, they were like, okay, let's make a structure. So I would say it was mom and dad definitely nurturing this attitude of like, hey, you should be doing something. What do you think of this? And mom and dad put me in a lot of things. And I think partly because I had so much energy that they were just like, this kid needs to be doing something or else he's going to like, we're going to kill him. So
Yeah.
like at one point in time, dude, like I was in like karate, soccer, basketball, swimming, skating, and I was still like, I'm not tired. Like I'm bored.
Yeah.
So my parents were like, who are you? So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, kines, sports psych, it really honed things in for me. And then even working at Lululemon and their mindset attitude on goals is really, I was like, oh yes, here we go. And I think for a lot of people, originally goals can be very scary, and can be off-putting because it's like, I need to be structured, I need to be disciplined, I need to hit this. If I don't hit it, there's something wrong with me, and so forth and so on. And for me, and maybe this might be later, a question you might have later, but I'll say it now. For me, I think goals shouldn't be the end all be all. The whole point of the goal is to get you moving and doing something so that you are better than who you were yesterday, right? And yes, hitting the goal is awesome and is a cherry on top, high fives, butt taps. However, I don't like, to me, hitting the goal isn't the end all be all, right? And stats even say if it is a goal that is actually worthwhile and stretching you out of your comfort zone, statistically, you won't hit it the first, second, third time, right? So right off the bat, there you go. Like, the point of the goal isn't to necessarily hit it. It should be striving towards something, striving towards excellence, striving towards, again, like just being better than who you were yesterday.
For sure. And that does go into the first problem that I have with goals typically. But I just want to stick on that really quickly of,
Yeah.
I really do think that's such an important concept. The idea that, goals are meant to stretch you and
Mm-hmm.
not meant to be achieved every single time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And normalizing, the failure of, it's okay to fail a goal because, you've still progressed, you've still worked towards it. You've still become better because you've been working towards it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, I set a goal so that I would hit it no matter what, and
Yeah,
look good, right? So
totally. And something else that I know Andy, is really good at talking about is like a task versus a goal, right? And like what comes to mind, and Andy, forgive me if I butcher this because this is always something Andy addresses, is when you have like a goal should almost be like, fuck yeah, I accomplished that. Like it has stretched me and I'm better than I was prior to doing that goal. Versus a task is all the little steps that will get you to achieving that goal, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people get caught up in task versus goal, right? Um, Again, like a task should be just those small things that you do every day that will lead you towards the goal, right? So an example could be maybe like, obviously, I want to lose X amount of weight at the gym, right? Well, that's the goal. The tasks would be like, okay, like I need to be at the gym 5 days out of the week. I need to make sure my eating is in place. I need to make sure my sleep is in. Like, you see what I'm saying? All these little bite-sized pieces that, if you do consistently, will eventually lead towards the goal, right? And so, yeah. Does that make sense?
yeah, that's really interesting. I think, just because when I as soon as you said that, my mind went
Yeah.
to, they can almost be both as well. And maybe that's why, people have such a hard time distinguishing between tasks and goals, right? Of,
Mm-hmm.
in that example, losing weight was the goal. However, and then the tasks were, going to the gym or whatever it might be. However, you could also do, my goal is to live a healthier lifestyle or be healthier. And then your
Mm-hmm.
task, one of the tasks in there is losing X amount of pounds, right?
Sure, for sure, definitely.
And so it's not necessarily, the specific action that you're doing. It's more of how that action fits into, your overall, what you're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, like this is the thing at the end of the day, like these words that we're using, they're interchangeable sometimes, and again, it just depends on who that person is and how it lands with them, right? And I would just say it's just a matter of someone being able, or being willing and able to distinguish the two and know the difference and how it relates to you when it comes to you achieving whatever you're achieving, whatever's meaningful to you.
Yeah, for sure. Another interesting one, mainly that came up last night as we were going through the goals with the guys, is something that I didn't realize how how much variation there is in people and what motivates them, and
Yeah.
what's healthy for them and unhealthy for them. And where that was coming up for me was, originally we had set where every single person, you have your goal, and then you have your reward for hitting your goal, and then you have a consequence for not hitting your goal, right?
Yep.
And that was just for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
this time we opened it up and said, you don't necessarily need to pick a reward or a consequence. And the variation in different people really surprised me. And
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, for myself, I took away the reward because the specific reward didn't get me excited. Right? It
Yep.
was more about achieving that goal that I set for myself. However, I did keep my consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, one, because that's how I am motivated, and
Mm-hmm.
two, because it's a somewhat healthy consequence where I have to do something that scares the living shit out of me and go karaokeing if I don't hit
Yeah.
my goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, when I thought about it, I went, it'd probably be good for me to push myself out of that comfort zone anyways. And even though it makes me squirm, it's not going to necessarily make me feel bad about myself or shame myself um, because I didn't hit that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so just that really interesting relationship of everyone's motivated differently, and everybody, I don't want to say can handle, but the reward slash consequence hits home with them differently. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, dude, like this is something that they talk about in sports psych all the time. Is like, are you internally motivated or or externally motivated? And case in point, like you said, like there are some guys that are just like, man, like I don't give a rip whether or not, you know what I mean? Internally, like I am succeeding. I want the championship. Like, you know what I mean? I want the accolades. I want the status. I want the money. Doesn't matter. That's how I'm motivated. It's like, F you, pay me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
that's the motto. And then there's other people that are like, no, like, I need to be like in unison with who I am. And my soul needs to be in alignment. And that's how I'm motivated. And it's all about my self image and my self worth. Cool. You know? And herein lies the challenge with different people is just being mindful of that, because then, for example, like if you take it to like a sport, it's knowing that, there's going to be one guy on your team. And I'll just say, for example, like maybe it's you, Jared. It's like we're playing a game of football, and I can grab you and be like, dude, like finish your tackle, stick it in, and this game is ours. And for you, you're fired up. I do that to somebody else, man, and his nervous system, he can't handle that. Like I've just shocked him. I got to go up to him and be like, dude, we finished this game and ice cream's on me. And he's like, yo, like, okay. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
And like I love that when it comes to sports psych and goals, because it's again like everybody's different, everybody's motivated and inspired differently. And that's the beauty of it. And it's being able to have a conversation and a dialogue to figure out, because and this is the thing, like people are bringing their worldview, their experiences, their nervous system when it comes to goals, right? And you need to be willing and able to meet them where they're at, right? Because once again, like a consequence to somebody, it can be built around like shame, right? I'm not good enough. Why am I even doing this? And for some people, that's what blows them out of having goals. That's why they hate goals, right? And then for other people, it's like they don't like goals in one sense because they're never truly happy. And I talked about this yesterday with you and Terrence, like just around like I'll be happy when I achieve this. And it's like you never actually reach a place of satisfaction or gratitude or happiness, because I'm always chasing this thing. And that thing is always, one, it's outside of you, right? That's the thing, it's outside of you. And then two, like you're always in this pursuit. It's like you never truly get to just sit and be. And so I think once again, like goals can be a scary place if it is not regulated properly.
for sure. Yeah, and in that conversation with Terrence, I was able to articulate it. Like I was quite proud of myself, so I want to share it
Yeah, say
again. But
it.
we were talking with him about stress, right? And stress doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
if it's managed properly and if it's going in a healthy place, because it can help push you, right? And we talked about the idea of being stressed because you want to achieve your goal instead of
Mm-hmm.
being stressed because you're afraid of failing it, right?
100%.
And just that little tweak in how you think about it can take you from a good place to a bad place.
Yeah,
And
man.
the other one that I was going to touch on is something that I've really been thinking a ton about recently, and as you were saying, is everybody is motivated differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel a lot of times people push against how they're naturally motivated or how they naturally like to do things, because they've seen other people do it, right? And
Yep.
they look at someone where it's very structured of like, I do this and I do this and I do this. And like you said, like sometimes you need a kick in the ass and that motivates one guy. But if you were to
Mm-hmm.
give that same guy a kick in the ass, he could just shut down, right? And
Yep.
sometimes it's the ice cream after the game is what he needs or they need,
Mm-hmm.
sorry. And yeah, and just not pushing against that, right? Of lean into your natural tendencies instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to fit into somebody else's box.
For sure. And once again, like, it's great that other people are talking about their successes and their wins and how they win. And with that, it's just a matter of being like, hey, like, this is one way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Take the meat, the potatoes, spit out the bones. You don't have to take everything. And I think sometimes our culture is like, well, if it worked for Jared, then it needs to work for me. And if it doesn't work for me, then there's something wrong with me. And it's like, no, like, that I feel is a fixed mindset, is it's kind of a broken model. It's like, no, like, you know what, like, I really like what Jared does over here. I'll take that. I really like what Terrence does over here. I'll take that. I like what Andy does over here. I'll take that. And I'll make it my own so that, guess what? Now, day in and day out, I can execute, you know? I'm not just doing Jared's mindset. And a week later, I'm like, nope, not for me. Doesn't work. You
Yeah.
know, like, it's not real. It's like, no, like, and even then, like, then the follow-up question needs to be like, hey, Jared, why do you do what you do? Right? Yes, I can have your framework, but I need to understand why you do what you do and what kind of mindset and attitude are you bringing into this,
Yeah.
right? Because for all we know, Jared's coming in like, yo, I'm doing this for the next 3 months, balls to the wall. And that's how he operates. But if I don't know that, I don't know if that's your mindset and attitude. I'm sitting here thinking, yo, Jared does this for like a year? No way.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case might be. That was just an example. But does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes a ton of sense. So
So
uh,
yeah,
awesome. So now some of the problems that I have with goals, and
let's go.
I think really what it comes down to is I see these things in a lot of people when they're talking about their goals, and
Mm-hmm.
it really pushes against my natural tendencies, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
just what we were talking about. And I think that's why I have such a problem with that.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear your thoughts on these 3 points. So the first one is difficulty,
Mm-hmm.
and on both sides of the coin, right? And I see a lot of times, people will make extremely difficult goals, not in what they're trying to achieve, but in the way that they have it set up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it bleeds into a little bit into the second one. But what I mean by that is, for example, somebody says, I'm going to run 5K a day, no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
right? For 3 months straight. And my mind automatically goes to like, that's awesome. However, what happens if you get sick one day? What happens if your child gets sick? What happens if you have a crazy day at work and you literally don't have the time or you're not able to commit to doing that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for me, when I think about like a easy fix in that is, make it a weekly goal instead of a daily goal. Instead of
Mm-hmm.
5K a day, I'm going to run, 35K a week,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's not necessarily what they're trying to achieve is too difficult, but in the way that they have it set up, it's
Yeah.
so rigid that it's setting them up for failure.
Yeah. Dude, I completely agree. And look, like what comes to mind is this attitude of like, is this a fixed goal or is this a continuous goal?
Okay.
Right. And once again, that falls on the individual. If you can be rigid enough that you're like, yo, 5 days out of the week, I am running 5K, then so be it. All the power to you, right? And be willing throughout the week or throughout the month to be like, you know what? 5 is too much. I'm doing 3 a week. Be okay with adjusting your goal. That's the whole point. Recalibrate. I don't think enough people are recalibrating their goals as they do it. No one's saying if January 1st you're like, I need to do this, and come February you haven't done it, dude, don't ditch the goal. Recalibrate, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? Maybe you start off as fixed, and then you realize, you know what? Fixed is too rigid. I'm doing continuous. So just like you said, I'm going to once a week accumulate 35K. You know what I mean? Maybe one day you're like, man, I'm feeling great. I crushed 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Next day you're like, I don't feel like doing anything. And then you make it up the rest of it, and it's boom, boom, right? Awesome. Cool. High fives, butt taps. Once again, like it doesn't have to be so rigid. I think a lot of people like it needs to just look like this. And if it doesn't look like this, like I failed, this goal isn't for real. And I'm like, once again, the whole point of the goal, for example, if it's running, was to get you moving and being out of the house, right? So let's look at why we are structuring this goal as opposed to just, I need to run 5K for what? Like, I say all the time at Lululemon and what have you, like when we're talking about goals, if when you put your head on the pillow, you're not in love with who you are, what you're accomplishing, and what you're doing, to me, like the goal is irrelevant. The goal should be synonymous. Like when you put your head on the pillow, you're like, man, I crushed it today. I
Yeah.
moved myself forward. Thank goodness that I have this in place to stretch me out of my comfort zone so I can be better today than I was yesterday.
Love that. And going back, when you think about fixed versus continuous goals, how do you how do you differentiate between that, like yourself?
Yeah. So like for me, I look at it like, for example, like for the gym is fixed for me. I want to be at the gym 4, 5 days out of the week, right? And I say that because I just know like Mondays is a write-off. So like it doesn't, you know what I mean? I don't have time for the gym. And I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? And then I'm very conscious. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're trying to go to the gym. Saturday, yes. Sunday, no. So there it is. You know what I mean? And for me, it's just like, okay, best case scenario, I'm there 5 days out of the week. You know what I mean? Bonus 6, 1 day of rest. You see what I'm saying? Versus like, let's say my continuous goal is like, yo, like, I want to be more like throughout the year. I want to be very mindful and cognizant of me not eating meat at every meal. You see what I'm saying? So it's
Okay.
just you know what I'm saying? Like it's not as fixed and rigid, but it's more like for the year, I just want to be mindful and cognizant of every meal that I have. It doesn't always have to be meat, and get more of my veggies in. And as one family friend would say, Nuke, eat more salad. So you know what I'm saying? So just stuff like that, you know. And again, like fix just being like, it's not like I am gun ho, rain, snow, sunshine. This is happening. That's fixed. Versus when it's continuous, there's more flexibility,
Yeah.
and it's not black and white.
Cool. Okay. So almost the way that you're measuring it. Would that be fair?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And so the other side of the coin, which I think is a bigger problem, which I see all the time, is people that make goals that are too easy, where
Mm.
it's almost impossible to fail them. And this is what we were talking about a little bit, where, actually achieving the goal should be the cherry on top. It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be the assumed outcome. right?
Yep.
Of people almost using it as, a confidence boost that I just achieved this goal, or the flip side of I need to achieve this goal. Otherwise, my self-worth takes a hit, my confidence takes a hit. I feel bad about myself. I'm a failure, all of those things. And so I better make sure that this goal is achievable. They say achievable, right? And what they really mean is almost impossible to fail.
Mm, mm. So with this, so this is something that I'm learning, dude. And it's hard because I can't judge a book by its cover. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? And like if someone sets an easy goal, all I can do is be like, hey, challenge, challenge, right? Is this you operating in your comfort zone, or is this you operating outside your comfort zone? You know? And again, for someone, those small little wins in their comfort zone might be what they need at this season in their life, So who am I to be like not good enough, right? Or be better? Versus, you know what? You set that goal and I'm like, challenge. And in that moment, case in point, like you can decide, you know what? Okay, you know what? You're right. I'm playing small. Let's play big, and let's get you a little bit outside your comfort zone. You know, um, I believe it was Will Smith or someone that said like, outside your comfort zone is where all the magic is, right?
Yeah.
And to parallel that, outside your comfort zone is where growth happens. So once again, I would, in a very healthy and conscious way, be like, hey, like your goal that you're setting, are you looking to stretch yourself, or are you just looking to have, your ego boosted? And in that moment, we'll dictate what kind of goals we set. And then
Yeah,
at that point, I was like, okay, fine. If that's where you're at, I will meet you where you're at, and let's set goals that boost your ego, because that's what you need right now.
for sure.
So
You
it's
know that
does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's actually one caveat that I hadn't considered before.
Mm,
Because sometimes
mm,
you do need that boost, right? Like especially if you're, in a low point or down on yourself. Sometimes you just need to feel that feeling of achievement, right?
yes.
And I think the other very important one to clarify on this too is that, you know, I don't get to decide what is an easy goal for you or for anybody
There you go.
else, right?
There you go.
And so it's not necessarily of, what is being done and everybody being held accountable to that same number. It is
Hmm.
more so like actually asking yourself, like, is this difficult for me to achieve? And
Yes.
really what it comes down to more so is just changing, like we talked about, changing that relationship around goals. Uh,
Hmm.
Again, without the caveat of I just need a win right now, and that will be very beneficial to me, is it's okay to fail my goal, right? It's okay to shoot high and to try and reach. And it should be more about the process rather than achieving that goal, right?
Yeah.
And I always come back to, like you said, that cherry on top, right? Like
Yeah.
working towards your goal, you have the rest of the sundae, right? If
Yep.
you actually achieve it, you get that cherry, but you still have 95% of the goodness with just working towards it.
For sure. So, dude, something that comes to mind as you're saying all this is, listen, and Slight Edge, I think is the book that he talks about it. He's like, when a missile is launched, right, or a rocket, for almost 95% of the course, it is off track.
Mm,
But the whole time it has programs telling it, hey, you veered off to the left, come back to the middle. You veered off to the right too much, come back to the middle. Hey, something's coming up, slow down. Hey, speed up. Do you see what I'm saying? So once again, to me, the goal, this is the thing. We know where we're going. We're fixed. We know where we're going, right? As long as we know where we're going and or where we want to end up, cool. Now let's be flexible with how that looks.
yeah.
So once again, it doesn't matter. And I said this yesterday. I think for a lot of people, they need to reimagine that word failure. They need to reimagine that word stress. They need to reimagine that word pain. Because along the way, if you're outside your comfort zone, you will witness all of that. And if you're intentionally failing forward outside of your comfort zone, how is that actually failure?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
No, that makes a ton of sense. And it's a perfect segue into the next one too, where you're talking about that
Okay.
flexibility,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that is, another huge one that I see a lot of times. And for me, I am very, very fluid where, something changes almost day to day and I adjust, right?
Mm.
And I hate feeling almost weighed down, right? And
Yep.
so that's where a lot of my problems come with longer term goals, for example, like quarterly goals,
Hmm.
where if something changes 2 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 8 weeks in, and I want to adjust,
Hmm.
I feel almost like there's an anchor holding me back of, no, this was the original goal, and so do I stick with it or do I change now that things have changed? And that can be even what's important to me, right?
Hmm. Yep.
When I first set this intention, X was super important to me. And
Yep.
now, my season has changed and it's not. Do I still, work towards that old goal or do I set a new one? Do I adjust it? Um, yeah. So thoughts on just flexibility and
Dude, I love
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Dude, it's so good. Dude, look, this is the beauty of goals. This is why I love it. Because yes, Jared, when you set January 1st, I want to, I'm just gonna use the gym again. I want to be at the gym 5 days. No, let's just say 4 days out of the week. Yeah. Now it's let's say it's March, it's April, right? And you're like, you know what? Life has happened now. Things have changed. I'm a different person than who I was in January. One, yes, thank God that you're a different person. So amen to that. Two, yes, who you are right now is different than who you were back then when you made the goal. So yes, things are going to be different. So my mind, yes, change the goal, tweak, pivot, right? And so that means, guess what? You know what? Lifting weights isn't a priority right now. I want to work on my flexibility now. I've realized since being at the gym now, since January, that my flexibility needs tweaking. That to me is a smart goal thinker, creator. It's like, you know what? Like, I'm being adaptable, I'm shifting, I'm being fluid. So now, guess what? I'm going to be at the gym 3 days out of the week, and 2 days out of the week, I'm doing yoga now. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like that makes, and then guess what? Now it's August, and you're like, you know what? My flexibility has gone through the roof. I want to keep that up. No more lifting weights. It's all flexibility. Once again, we pivot. Do you see what I'm saying? And
yeah,
yes, Jared that made that goal in January is different than Jared now in August. Thank God. You've changed, you've matured, you've adapted, you've transformed. That's the whole point of the goal. You are better than who you were when you first started the goal. So to me, I'm like, yes, pivot, change, recalibrate, tweak it. All the power to you. And once again, the goal has served its purpose. And I'll say something. You most likely you didn't even hit the original goal that you set in January. However, you started moving. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And when you started moving, you were like, oh wow, I don't even know if I like that anymore. Pivot, tweak, let's do something that we actually want to do.
yeah,
The thing is, guess what, Jared? You wouldn't have known that that's what you wanted to do if you hadn't made the goal in January instead of moving.
yeah,
Most people want it to just fall in their lap and be like, "Yep, the universe told me, mom and dad told me, God told me,
yeah,
whoever told me." No, you have to start moving and doing something, and then you're like, you know what? We are gonna actually tweak this because I've realized since starting that actually doesn't make sense, or you know what? I need to put a pause on this, and actually this now is a priority because I need to like go back to school and upgrade some things, and then once that's figured out, then this becomes back into the fray. But you wouldn't have known that if you hadn't started.
yep. No, for sure. And I completely agree with that. And I feel like it's not the popular opinion, right? Again,
Mm.
it's like that's not how you're supposed to do it. And
Yeah.
that's just me not paying attention closely enough, or only hearing that side of the argument. But that has always been, one of the things that I've struggled with of I want to be flexible with it. If this new information comes to light, I'm going to adapt to it. Right. And almost that like internal dialogue of, if I change my goal, am I falling out of integrity with myself or am I being adaptable? Right. And so, that's just always been one that I've really struggled with.
Dude, like, if anything, I would argue if you set a goal and things have changed and you stick back to the original goal, now you're being out of integrity.
Yeah.
Because the current Jared doesn't believe in what the former Jared did. And to me, now you're living in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
And to live in the past is a scary thing when you have the present and you can be and become anything you want. Why would you go back to the past in that mindset and attitude?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Love that way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, 100%, dude. And now I'm getting outside of goals a little bit, but to me, dude, like anytime that we are in the current, well, we we always are in the current reality, unless you know how to go back in time, then tell me. But to me, I'm like, right now, you have the ability. Who says this? Jason Silva says we are ontological engineers.
Okay.
Like we are the only species that is able to think a thought and then go out and execute. Right now, why would you forego that and go back to the past? Who you were 10 minutes ago is different than who you are right now, man.
Yeah.
Facts. Those are facts.
Love that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now take it back to like who you were 6 months ago. No way, dude. Why would you make a goal that you set 6 months ago and bring it into your current reality when that has nothing to do with who Jared is now?
Yeah. Or at least asking that question, right? Like,
yeah,
does this goal still apply to me? And even though I've changed, does it still apply, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Love it. Now this is the one where I think we might be on different wavelengths a little bit.
Bring it on.
And so for me, when I think about how to make myself most effective, in setting a goal, I believe that your goal should be based completely on things that you control.
Okay.
Right. And not on other people's decisions or actions. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, for example, one of the guys in the group, he was starting a new business. Right. Mm-hmm. And so his goal was to get whatever it was, 50 qualified leads in the quarter. Right. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I would rather build the habits and make the goal around the actions that will lead to getting qualified leads as opposed to getting them in general. Right. And so instead of like, I need this many leads, I believe that it's better to go, I will cold call or market for this amount of time. Right. Like I will spend 10 hours a week on working towards getting those leads as opposed to getting the leads being the pass or fail of the goal.
Yeah.
And the reason behind that is, when it's left up to other people, it's almost doing a disservice to you, and it has the potential to give you false feedback. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is you might be killing it, doing an amazing job, doing everything right, working towards it, setting yourself up for success. But you could run into the wrong kind of person, right? Or the wrong time for them, or whatever it might be, that even though you did everything right, they still give you a no, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, it could be the opposite. You're actually doing a shitty job, right? You're not doing a good job. You're not, sharpening your skills. You're being sloppy, whatever it might be. However, that person just, for whatever reason, either really wanted what you were saying or was just in that sort of mood, and they give you a yes, right? Mm-hmm. And so you hit your goal, but you've set yourself up with bad habits. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, it does. And I feel as if it's a little bit of the snake eating its tail,
Okay.
because I would say, for example, like what you're describing are the tasks to be done to eventually get you to those, let's just say 50, those 50 guests, customers, right? And so to me, it would just be like, listen, like I know that, let's say I want to have a legit 50 touches with 50 people. That's what it looks like. And then to have the framework and the good habits of, I'm going to make sure that I spend 10 hours a week making sure that I am intentional on the back end, making connections, building contacts, reaching out through emails, calls, or what have you, having all these solid habits. So that, guess what? Come the end of the quarter, you can be like, listen, like I showed up day in and day out. At the end of it, I only had 25 legit touches with people. 5 of those were converted into clients. Yes, I didn't get the 50, but I have these great habits, routines, and what have you on the back end. So I feel like it's a snake eating its tail. It's a little bit of both. And it's to be mindful of both of that, right? Because I think, yeah, if you just look at it like, I just want to have 50 customers, and you don't do any of that tangible habits to get you there, yeah. And on the flip side, if you just stick with your tasks and you don't kind of have like a benchmark to aim at, it could be a lot. It could be a lot of gray area.
Okay.
So I think it's a healthy blend of both. That would be my 2 cents.
That makes a lot of sense. And just as you were talking about it, it might be as well that I naturally just kind of track the other side of it too. I track those tangible, how many customers, right?
Yep.
See if I'm on track.
Mm-hmm.
My worry is just always, you know, setting myself up for success
Yes.
rather than setting myself up for results.
Yes. For
And,
sure.
again, I'm just like, I go back to the numbers will always play out, right?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
especially if it's, a shorter term goal of like in this next month or even like this next quarter, I'm going to get these many clients or these many leads.
Yep.
When you amateurize that out over a year or 2 years or 5 years, if you've built those foundational habits,
Yes.
you will, those customers will come, those leads will come, those results will come, as
Yep.
opposed to if you're only focused on the results and you don't have the good habits, you might have that short-term success, but over time, it's not going to necessarily keep up.
I completely agree with that, brother. I completely agree. And it definitely has to be a beautiful blend of both. And obviously, and just like you said, like, yes, being mindful and tracking those numbers to make sure that your habits are in place. And if you are showing up day in and day out, it is only a matter of time. It's only a matter of when, not if,
Yeah,
at that point in time.
exactly. Awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
yeah, no, so those are the big sticking points for me. And I guess just the last thing I wanted to touch on quickly here was,
Yeah.
something that we as a group really put a lot of emphasis on this
Mm.
time around is the underlying why around the goal,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's not just setting an arbitrary goal,
Mhm.
but really having a deeper meaning behind it,
Yep.
right? And so just wondering if you have anything to say on that or why that's important.
Dude, I completely agree. Like, for example, like, dude, I can say full on, like, all of my goals in the last 2 quarters have always been to push me outside my comfort zone and to expand me in some area, right? And so for me, it's a matter, for me personally, I'll speak for myself, my goals are always around stretching me. And like, and like, case in point, this third quarter goal is out of my comfort zone and it's scary to me. So I know like this is something that needs to be done, right? And once again, like that why is important. And for someone else, the why could be different. And it might, from my perspective, be maybe childish or immature. However, who am I, like we discussed, to be like, that's not a big enough goal for you, or something that's going to stretch you. So in that moment, it's just like, hey, gut check. Is this out of your comfort zone? Is this stretching you? Is that even what you want to be working on?
Yeah.
Right? Because again, at the end of the day, the last thing that I'd want for you is to be doing a goal that you wake up and you're like, I don't even want to work on this.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary. Like, not that it's scary. Like it doesn't motivate me. It's frustrating. Like, it's actually killing my soul.
Yeah.
Then what's the point of having a goal? Just to say you have a goal? That's silly to me.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd much rather it be. How about this? I'd much rather your goal be in alignment with who you want to become,
Yes. I love
however
that.
that looks.
Yeah.
However that looks. And as I say that, for example, what do you believe? What are your core values? What are your standards of integrity? Run your goal, like use that as a filter system and run it through that. And if it doesn't come out, then it's not a good goal.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's not a
Yeah.
good goal then. Retweak it, update it so that, guess what? Day 60 into your goal, when you're like, why am I doing this? You can come back to the why and be like, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Right? This is why we're doing this goal. Because it's in alignment with who I want to become, with my values, with what I believe. Oh, yeah. Okay. Got it. Good refresher. Back at it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For sure. And when you know what I've come to realize for myself is, again, with more struggling with goal setting traditionally, and in my life, I have used it in a different way. And it made me realize that you can use goals in different ways of outcomes. And sometimes it's to push you out of your comfort zone. Sometimes
Yep.
it's to achieve more. Sometimes it is to set you up for who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, because I know I'm very accountable to other people, right? I hold
Mm-hmm.
myself accountable to other people. And
Yep.
what I've been able to do, which has helped me, is I've been using the goals not necessarily to achieve, but to
Mm-hmm.
push me out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
Of I need that extra push, that extra accountability to get to that place, to be out of that comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
on a consistent basis as well. And so that is how I've used it. And using that as the framework, finding how those sort of actions will fit into my bigger plan of what I want to achieve in my life. And so right now, those are the goals that I've had to set, because I've stuck with them and they have been beneficial. So
Yeah, man. And I mean, like, I want to preface it and say, like, in my humble opinion, right? Like, this is my humble opinion and my experience when it comes to goals. So please, if you're listening, don't be like, those aren't grounded in facts and how, like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
However, like the last thing I want to say is, I think for a lot of people, like, they think that they need to have the same framework in every area of your life. And the example I use is, for example, listen, when it comes to my relationships, for example, those are very fixed because I know time is valuable and I want to respect people's times, and that's what it looks like. You know what I'm saying? And I'm conscious of that, and that's the framework that I use there. However, when it comes to like me and stuff that I'm working on, I'm more flexible. I'm more rigid. And so basically, like, I don't use the same lens, right? And I think for some people, like, they feel like they got to use the same lens in every area of your life. No, man. No, like if that doesn't work for you and who you want to become, what you want to create, what you want to feel, then don't do it just because this famous celebrity does it. That's an absolute disconnect. That's a disservice to you
yeah,
and who you want to become. Do what you want to do, be who you want to be, because it is in alignment with who you want, not who you want, of how you want to show up in this world. That is it.
yeah,
Don't get caught up in the fluff. Do not get caught up in the fluff for
yeah.
whatever that is worth.
No, I love that. And I think it's super important. And, the part I want to hammer home of what you said is, because I hadn't put it to words before, heard it put to words, is it's okay to show up differently in different aspects of your life. You know,
Yep.
sometimes you need that rigidity. Sometimes you need that flexibility. Sometimes you're somewhere in the middle. It doesn't have to be a blanket statement. You don't have to do every single thing exactly the same way. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And just to make sure that you are still the same person in the same room.
Yeah.
Because I'm all for living your life in one room. Glass house, right? So what it is my values, my what I stand for are all in alignment. How that looks though, based on the context, who I'm with, right, will be a harmonious blend.
Yeah.
However, if you like scrape it back, yo, it's still truth, love, and positivity.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
Cool. And like I know you know that. It's for the listeners listening. Like, well, Jared said I can show up in different. It's like no.
Yeah.
The virtues, the values stay the same. However, there is gray area. It's not
Yeah,
always black and white for whatever that's worth.
for sure. Love that.
All right,
Well,
homie.
my friend, thanks again. It's always a pleasure. Love
My
chatting with
pleasure.
you. And we'll do this again soon. Of
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on as always, and we'll be in touch. Yeah.
course. Love you.
All right, brother.
All right.
Later.